fall for it. Why did you do it?
You're fucking
He did when the first time that he like drove me, he said, "Oh, I'm driving you." It means that I can actually use the HOV lane. It's usually just me and Bofa. I'm like, Bofa what? And he said, or Bofa who? Or Bofa what? And he was like, Bofa these nuts. I can't believe you fell for that.
Gotcha.
Of course.
like, I'm confused. If you say Bofa,
Both of
did you
these
send the
nuts.
link?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh.
What's up, guys?
Oh, you can see that my pants are
Do you want to say hi, Dan?
Hi, Dan.
Get out of here.
He's a professional.
You don't have to. I don't. Who cares? We're just waiting for you, Laura. I just sent you the email with it all. You actually, if you want to check, yeah, there's probably more.
We do have to commend you on your email name.
Yes, Hot
Hot Girl
Girl
97.
97. I fucking love it.
My mom would never get away with me having that email.
Yeah.
No, of course.
Yeah, I would be way too embarrassed to tell my mom that email.
Yeah.
I could never.
I made my
MySpace
mom an email, and it's Hot Girl 97.
Yes, Hot MILF
Hot MILF 97.
65.
Yeah.
Hot MILF 23.
I was-
1923.
Yeah, I got my mom with a classic the other day. I was like, hey, Mom, can you touch your elbows together?
Oh my God, you didn't know.
Got her. Toby.
See, what I do is I just go like this, like, yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can. Oh, because of the boobs thing. I mean, yeah, you've done that.
Well, yeah, nobody does that to you.
But
Shayna.
I know, but you've done that to me. Of course.
Everyone's just disappointed with
Yeah,
you.
of
It's
course.
like, yeah.
They're like, same difference.
Yeah, sure. It's like watching a 12-year-old do
I
it.
can also like do it up here without doing it. Oh, actually, no. It's because I'm wearing a sweater. But
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, why would you go like that? But yeah.
Man, yeah, you're like, why don't I just go in front of you?
I can do it back
And I'm
here.
like, and he's like,
I can too. You can too, right?
Yeah,
The only other
we
person
had-
I've ever met that can
Yeah, when you first asked me and I could do it, I didn't even think you asked me. I think I just showed it to you.
blew my
And you were
balls
like,
off.
Oh.
Nina, I've been waiting.
Ow,
Sorry, I totally just slapped it.
It's so out of whip. But I got it. I got it.
But when I first did that, you were like, oh my God, Nina, I've been waiting for you my whole life.
I have been. For sure. I would ask everybody all the time. It's meant to. No! This shit
Well,
it's meant to be, bitches.
That's the only way you test your friendships.
You're like, can you touch your
Can you
elbows
put
together?
your elbows together behind your back?
If you can't, get out of my apartment.
You guys can get started. Don't even worry about it.
We're waiting.
Oh, okay, good. I was like, I sure hope.
Let me send it to both of her emails. Maybe maybe she
Yeah.
doesn't check that email. Sorry about this.
The email she just got you. David.
Well, maybe it's just connected to her YouTube. And it's not one that she checks. But even though she specifically said that's the one she wants.
Hot Girl 97.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Either way.
Ooh, okay.
We should have like fucking email templates by now, but we don't. That's
Oh, like the bottom sign up.
no, like we're gonna ask me about a drag me. Let's have a template where you just like plug
I
in
pretty
your
much
name.
do. My phone does it on auto.
Yeah, but it's just funny
Or
because
auto-
we don't have those, at all.
Oh, like copy and pasted.
Yeah, like
Oh,
everyone
like
has-
an application.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. It's always
Like a
just-
Mad Lib.
Oh my God, you need to drag me Mad Lib.
But the thing is, like, it's different all the like. I never write the same thing exactly.
book?
Same.
Dude, party trick astrology.
No, it's fine. Nothing's happening.
No, but it's never. I never find that I can write exactly the same thing because there's always something different.
That's
There's like the same vibe, but I always have to write like. Oh, she's here.
Yay!
Hello.
Okay, so
Welcome. Sorry for the delay. There was a bunch of technical difficulties in the internet working, and then emails. There, you have a solid 4 minutes of us just talking about nothing. If you want to go back, so yeah, so your reading will end at the
1 hour and
1 hour
5
4
minutes.
and 5 minutes.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, so let's get into what you asked and addressed all of that. You're talking about, or you're asking about, your career is teaching specifically the right direction for you to go in, about relationships and wanting to touch on your 5th house interception and all of your 7th house stuff. Then your 9th house and why you might be having difficulties with college, or I mean, if you're in the same timeline as we would be, because you are 97, or no, you would be going into senior year if you're on the same timeline with the rest of your age. Then talking about self-love and a general slump or lack of direction that you're feeling.
My first thing that I want to say is when I first looked at your chart and you're like, is teaching right for me? I was like, yes. It absolutely is. You check all the boxes. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything that you want to start off with that. I mean, I can go out into why.
I have in my notes.
Cool.
I'm still in school. It's taking me.
You got all that 9th house stuff. People with 9th house stuff is going to take a little longer.
But I wanted to address first your kind of general slump and lack of direction. You have an Aries Libra interception, which is it's 2 cardinal signs. Cardinal literally meaning direction. 2 cardinal signs intercepted. This could be a culprit of you feeling directionless. With Pisces taking over your 11th house, it can be hard for you specifically to take action when it comes to forming networks.
Yeah, and groups, especially with Saturn in there.
Which is a big part of what school is, even though it's the 9th house. Just kind of that entire community, like, of not just friendship, but college is where you make your networks for your future career and everything. So it's not the easiest thing to have Pisces ruling that, especially when Aries is being trapped in there. So you can not be feeling confident in associating yourself with a tribe personally or professionally, just because the 11th house is where you hold your interception.
Yeah, and having Pisces rule there, you probably feel really lost and directionless, where Aries wants to be there, where it knows exactly where it wants to go. Mm-hmm. And so having that Aries interception, and then with Saturn as well, you probably are just a little bit more of a loner because of that. And it can be overwhelming when because the 11th house it still obviously matters in younger school. But when you get out of school is when you really notice how bad it is. Like, that's when I've noticed how bad I am at it. And so I think it's something that unfortunately you're going to realize that you're like, wow, I didn't take time to kind of develop these like networking people skills that I really wish that I would have had time to develop. But then having Saturn in there makes it feel like it just makes you not want to as much. You know what I mean? Not only can you not, but you also don't want to, you know?
Yeah. And Pisces is one of the most receptive signs. So when Pisces is taking over Aries, in the case of any Aries Libra interception, you just feel more comfortable in a receptive position.
Yeah.
And instead of making decisions and being the one to form plans and being the one to take action, you don't feel like very comfortable doing that, and you would rather go with the flow, which you're very good at. But when it comes to taking action, that's where you feel probably the most uncomfortable, and it's especially manifesting in the 11th house.
Yeah, you said any friends I've made very traumatic, very short-lived and traumatic, which makes sense with the 11th house. Actually, you're Gemini rising, but you have the same interception house setup as me, if that makes sense. Like the intercepted 5th and 11th, and the 2nd and the 3rd is where it doubles.
Mm-hmm. But even though you have this Aries interception, you compensate, that's not what I meant to say. Where you are going to find your strength if you kind of stop fighting the interception and lean into the fact of like, yes, this house is ruled by Pisces. It's not natural to a Gemini rising, but it is my chart. So where you're going to find the strength is taking the time to listen to your intuition and to marinate in your feelings. And not even just in terms of your 11th house, but just not having Aries rule any house. What you really need to do and what you find yourself doing is, instead of taking action, marinating in your feelings, and just like conceptualizing things for a really long time before you're able to take any steps, and where it's very easy to beat yourself up for not taking action. It can be a very useful time if you use it productively to just marinate in your feelings and to really listen to your intuition before taking any steps, because Aries doesn't think before taking action, which sometimes is good, but to kind of work with your chart the best, making decisions based off of your intuition and based off of a lot of foresight and premeditation can be it's where you're going to find strength,
especially with the Cancer moon. You
Yeah.
really have to listen to that part of you. So don't think like you might find yourself being very receptive and more like you're not quick to cut people off almost, like having that 11th house in Pisces, but you probably have been in a lot of relationships where you need to cut it off. You know what I mean? But you shouldn't you should take action not with how you feel you should take action. Like you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Okay. Like, let's say a friendship, you said you've had some hard friendships, right? Instead of everybody telling you to do this, don't go with what everybody's telling you. You should sit and marinate in it. Take your Cancer moon in, take the Pisces 11th house, and you will know intuitively when to end things or not.
Yeah, instead of acting out of principle, instead of acting out of people telling you what to do, I'm sorry, but like a perfect example of this is the current season of The Bachelorette. Everyone is telling Hannah, like, send Luke home, but she's not going to do it because she's not going to send him home, even though he's crazy, just because everyone is telling him that telling her that he's crazy. So she needs to see his crazy for himself, which she probably will. But in order to be able to take any action, you're the kind of person who needs to marinate in their feelings. And the right opportunity will present itself to you, although likely it's going to be a situation because Pisces is a much more receptive sign. It's going to be in a situation where you feel like extremely helpless to it.
Yeah.
I have the same interception, and I was actually going through a rough time with a friendship. And I just, even though I knew that it was like so not good, there was just so many moving parts, and I didn't know how to like end the friendship or like address the situation. And we were living together, so I thought like I can't even think about this until the lease comes to an end. What ended up happening is I marinated on it forever, but never took any action. And then she took all the action overnight, and I felt completely helpless and powerless in the situation. So that is not like essentially, that's not like the ideal way for things to go about. But when you have a Pisces or an Aries interception and Pisces is taking over, that's probably going to be what's going to happen. You're going to feel just much more like you need to go with the flow. And then you have these kind of like tower moments where everything comes crumbling down.
That Aries, that's
in there, but it's never not for the best. So it can take a little bit more effort from you than most to actually initiate things and actually go through things with care and action, just because you just are more inclined to think about it and feel on it and conceptualize it before taking action. But just knowing that that's kind of a thing that you're like, oh, that's me. I'm going to want to conceptualize it forever and ever. It just takes that kind of awareness to discipline yourself more. I've been trying to cut my ex off for 2 years. Yeah. That's going to be hard with an Aries interception.
And an intercepted sun.
Yeah.
And Saturn.
But honestly, there is no answer other than just do it.
I know, I'm such an Aries in 11th house. I'm like, tell them you hate them. Tell them they suck and that you'll never talk to them again.
I think Nike is the most Aries brand ever.
It is!
Because the logo is just do it. And Nike is actually the name of like the goddess of war in
Oh, yeah?
in something. Yeah. Yeah. So where was I? So yeah, in missing Libra, you're also missing that sense of balance and give and take in your creative and romantic life because it's happening in the fifth house?
Yeah, so what's interesting about this is the fifth house. Somebody with the fifth house sun is going to have a big ego. It's going to like just naturally like, normally this is like the favorite, you know, in like their after school activities growing up. You know, like I had a friend with the fifth house sun and she was always like the favorite at dance class. You know what I mean? But having it be intercepted in Libra, it's like maybe you always desperately wanted to be the favorite, but were forgotten about. You know what I mean? Like you, like, I feel like you did well, but you never did well enough. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
to be really making a standout.
Also, something that I was thinking about is where people who are very unconfident also need a lot of validation in the same way that people who are very about themselves need a lot of validation. And I think in the positive Leo energy or positive fifth house energy, that person needs the validation because they always received it.
Yeah, exactly.
And in the negative, that person needs validation because they always received the opposite. So that could be like you are kind of so, I mean, I hesitate to say this word, but we all are a little selfish, especially in this day and age. So your selfishness doesn't come as much from a self-interest, but your self-obsession comes from an insecurity, you know?
Yeah, no, that's true. And also with just having an intercepted fifth house and having Libra and like having your sun in there, like it's really hard. Like you will be like your constant quest is just to figure out how you want to express yourself. Like it almost feels like it kind of is like your ego's purpose. You know what I mean? Now, normally a fifth house sun was just to do it, but you need to kind of find it first and really go to the root of you. And I think that something that I've never said this before, but I think would be good for you is doing stuff like mood boards or doing stuff like that, kind of like Pinterest stuff. Like I feel like you'd be into that just as a person. And I feel like that will really help you see that kind of like visual representation of like, oh, this equals me, because it's so hard for you to find that, but yet that's what you really need to search for. And having Libra be your sun sign anyways, it can feel like you don't even have it feels like not only don't have an identity, but you don't even have like you don't even have a group as well, because you also have the 11th house interception. Like you don't even have like a thing that you fully fit into. Like you fit into too much in that sense of you can kind of find yourself in everything. Yeah. And you can find yourself in everything, but you can't find yourself specifically in anything. And it can be like, that's why you have to kind of like create your own little thing of stuff, if that makes sense.
I want to touch on the fact that your interception in the fifth house is you're missing Libra and Virgo is taking it over. So missing that sense of balance in romance and in your creative life and just a lot of it of your life. With Virgo taking over that sense of balance, you're kind of sacrificing yourself at the cost of a balanced give and take relationship in romantic endeavors, in creative endeavors, in your life, basically. So that's specifically where that theme is coming up. Your lack of give and take is fueled by or taken over by this need to self-sacrifice.
And I think you also have this need to be perfect. You need to like look perfect and find this perfect little niche. You probably are like a little bit obsessed with organizing or something. I don't know, maybe not, but I feel like with having that intercepted fifth house and it being in Virgo, instead of like being creative, you overcompensate by like organizing creative things. I don't know if that makes sense. Like you'd be somebody who would like, I'm not saying this is your destiny. I'm saying like if you worked at like a retail store, you'd be fantastic at like folding clothes and doing all that kind of stuff. I don't know. That's a weird thing to say.
I mean, Virgo is the ultimate subordinate.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just like I'll do whatever I need to do to be like perfect, and it doesn't matter if you give me anything.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking maybe with your fifth house sun, but it being intercepted, is that you have this inner desire for attention and self-expression that was possibly nurtured by your family but shut down by other people,
Yeah.
which gives you this sense of insecurity about your worthiness and your right to take up space, which are all characteristic of an intercepted sun.
Yeah, I feel like your home life was very loving and a little bit too sheltered because you have that double Cancer. So that means your third house was in Cancer when most Gemini suns wouldn't. So your third house was probably a lot more homey and comforting and kind of closed off and sheltered than most Gemini risings. You didn't really get out as much as they usually do, you know?
Mhm.
And then also having your fourth house in Leo, which is kind of like having a second sun there, and having your fifth house, your sun in your fifth house. I feel like you definitely got all your attention from your family,
Mhm.
and then stepping outside, you weren't given it. And that was
Yeah.
a big like, what?
I'm so confused. Yeah, and you're saying
My
my
mom
mom
was-
was very, obviously knows best in the
Only child. Yeah, for sure. I think that definitely makes sense.
Yeah, so with Virgo taking it over, I think it's like you were nurtured with all this love and affection from your family. Then you got out into the real world and people kind of shut you down and you became self-conscious and doubtful of your worthiness. And the way it turned into a hyper obsession with perfectionism.
mhm. Which I think, because like I'm also an only child, and I think that comes from like having somebody being down your, like having two people being down your throat your whole life. It's like it doesn't allow for, like, you don't slip through the cracks at all, and it's great getting attention, but sometimes it can be like, can't I just do things without having every little thing be like scrutinized under a microscope? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I feel like you expect attention, whereas a more normal, I hesitate to say, like more unintercepted
Yeah.
sun in the fifth house would just like expect attention and expect positive attention.
And tell them like you have
Yeah.
to give it to me.
You expect positive or negative attention, but everything you do, you expect to get attention, and you actually often don't.
Mhm.
And it's like, what? I'm not getting attention even for like this thing that I was self-conscious about and like ready to defend myself over.
Mhm.
But I'm not even getting attention for it. And it's just this like crazy, like, I don't know what's going on. And not getting negative attention also messes with your self-esteem because you're not getting attention is already like, what?
Yeah, I feel like you're one of those people. Oh, fuck, I had it. Hold on. He was like we'll come home from school and be like, why doesn't anybody pay attention to me? Like, why isn't anybody doing this? Like, why isn't why did I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, let's say you're taking a like, I don't know, it's like an extracurricular, like you're in PE or something. This isn't gonna be, but I'm just making up a fake thing. Like if you were in PE and you were like a good baseball player and you like weren't picked as one of the main starter captain people, you'd be like, oh, why wasn't I, blah, blah, blah. And it's because like you don't say anything, you don't show yourself, like you need to prove that you're good at baseball first. But you're like, why do I have to prove I'm good at baseball first? You should just know I am. Like it's kind of like that thing of like, I expect attention. I expect to like kind of get what I should, because I think that comes from like, because you have a very only child chart. And like I definitely do in certain ways, but I feel like you're just like, once you said that, I was like, oh, that like screams it. And then like the double Cancer and then the Cancer in the second and like the sun. Anyway, of like, oh fuck, what was I just about to say?
Expecting attention.
Yeah, okay, I'll figure it out.
But I also think that you
Fuck.
expect negative attention. I think that's the manifestation of Virgo in the fifth house, ruling the fifth
Yeah, I
house,
was
and
gonna
your
say
interception is like you say something stupid and you're like, oh my God, someone's going to call me out on it. And then they don't.
Mhm.
And that's just as disappointing.
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to say. Something along the lines of like, it's weird to like, when you went out in the world, you were like, I'm not seen just by being here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you could just be there and be seen at home, but when you go out, you can't. And there's also that paranoia then, because you just assume everybody's always looking for trouble. But also, that's all. Anyways, what am I saying?
Yeah, I want to move on to your seventh house stuff.
Yeah.
You asked about like relationships in seventh house. So your Venus is in Sagittarius in the seventh house. So that any air or fire sign a Venus in the 7th house is never going to be as straightforward as we would like it to be, because Venus in the 7th house does want things to be very straightforward. But something in Sagittarius is going to want to throw a wrench in this folks, you know? So there's this balance that you need to figure out with finding yourself in a partner and not feeling like you're losing your freedom. That's the Venus in Sagittarius and 7th house balance. So maybe a healthy dose of distance is good for your relationship, but then that's still difficult for your Venus in the 7th house, because when you're away from your partner, you feel incomplete. So you kind of need to reconcile the two. You need to both like feel that freedom and feel that independence of being away from your partner, and also not be too carried away with yourself to ignore your partner, because there's so much for you to learn and gain from being in close relationships.
I feel like you've been alone for a lot more of your life than you wish you have been. I feel like there's also something with Venus and Sagittarius that can sometimes, not always, but I feel like if there's like a strong connection to Venus and Saturn, with Venus and Sagittarius, I've seen this in him. Not just my chart, but I have another friend that is this way too. And I was talking with her and I think this is it. But like you almost are, there's like that freedom in being alone. And it's like, with that Saturn context, you have a positive Saturn context. So I feel like you're very, very good at being alone, but you also desperately want a relationship. But being an only child and wanting this 7th house Venus relationship and being alone for a lot of it makes you so sat in being alone and comfortable in it that there can be that intimidation of when approaching you, there's just more of a confidence. You know what I mean? And you project that. And so I feel like, because it's in your 7th house, so I feel like a lot less people approach you for a relationship also with your intercepted sun than actually are interested in you. And also out of like you're here, you're gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm going to open up the window. And
You said that you're saying that you only had one relationship, and that is, and you alluded to the fact that you still can't cut off the guy.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for Venus in the 7th house to move past that one relationship, because we want to find that one relationship and for that to be it.
And you already have Libra and Cancer, which are two ultimate like relationship things. Like they're very emphasizing your Venus in the 7th house.
But if you can reconcile the Venus and Sagittarius part of you, even though it's in the 7th house, Venus in Sagittarius and the 7th house ruled by Sagittarius, there's a lot in your 7th house that is talking about learning from your relationships and your partners and seeking out someone who can expand your mind and introduce you to new experiences. So the best way, I think, for you specifically to get over someone is to acknowledge the lessons that they provided for you. And just remember that it's hard for Venus in the 7th house to even entertain the idea of like, maybe there's someone else for me, because you get so dead set on like, just one person, please.
Yeah, I want to talk about this. Okay, so you said, I'm sorry to throw y'all a wrench, which only one relationship isn't a wrench. That's kind of what I expected with Venus and Sagittarius in the 7th house, trine Saturn. And I feel like you're not that upset about it. Ugh, it's too loud. Fuck, I want air. Hold on, can you hear that outside? I can close that. But is there any way you could talk about cheating? Because I cheated and have never been able to get over the guilt of it all, which makes complete sense as a Venus in Sagittarius, conjunct your Mars in Sagittarius. Those two placements are very impulsive. Those two placements are definitely going to kind of be like, oh, an opportunity, oh, an experience. I don't want to let myself, not do this and then regret it in the long run. Like Venus and Mars in Sagittarius is very scared of like regretting not taking the opportunity in the long run, like looking back and being like, oh, I wish I would have blanked. That's like the last thing that you want, right? But then Venus in the 7th house is so dedicated. But you're going to act on your signs. You're not going to act on your houses. So you're acting on your sign and then you're going to feel it in the house. So that's why you cheated and then you feel immense guilt over it. But I would like to say, that you should not feel guilty about cheating if this guy is still on your ass and he's your ex for 2 years
Yeah.
later. He's obviously not the one. And a Venus in Sagittarius is kind of in a weird way a promise of multiple relationships or just more than one.
7 houses Sagittarius.
Yeah, just multiple people coming your way, and they should be coming your, like, not should be, but like you should embrace that.
Yeah.
Don't feel like there's anything wrong with that and that you should only have this one
For the
person.
sake of lessons, especially.
Yeah, for the sake, I think, of honestly period lessons, especially because your Mars and your Saturn are trine your Saturn, which means that the more people, not the more, but the more experiences you put yourself in relationships in that way, it doesn't have to be with multiple people, but just the more you put yourself out there, the more good you'll learn. And it's not scoring, so it's not going to be this terrible blah, blah, blah thing. It's going to be like you're going to grow so much so quickly and with much more ease than most people. So don't get down on yourself for like cheating. Be happy that of all that you learn from it and da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah. You also want to ask yourself, why did I cheat?
Yeah.
Why did I have that impulse?
Yeah.
What is going on in this relationship? Reevaluate. Obviously, he's a Scorpio. He will never forgive you, but
No,
he
he
won't
won't.
let it go either. Is that something that you want to put yourself through? What was the person that you cheated with providing that your partner wasn't providing? And don't like play the blame game of like, I cheated on you because you wouldn't tell me that I was pretty enough. But it's the best way to forgive yourself in any situation is to kind of see like, is to see the lesson in it. And I'm the kind of person who I try to take responsibility for as little as possible, good or bad, of things that happen in my life. I'm just like, this was meant to happen. And I just ask, why? Why did this happen? And I try to see like the silver lining in anything. And that's a very Sagittarian quality. Yeah, I would definitely value just, and everything that you're saying about this ex of yours, this one person that you had a relationship with, it rubs me the wrong way. I don't
Yeah.
know how it makes you feel.
I was going to say, okay, so a Scorpio, like being with somebody who's a Scorpio and having kind of a very changeable sun, like just being a very changeable person, just in general. Yeah, you're just very, easily kind of moved by somebody you really like, right? Not by everybody, but if you choose, then you can be, right? So the Scorpio is going to tell you like one person's the way to go. This is how to love. This is how all love is. Because Scorpio, it's like, it almost feels like it knows and all. I don't know. And Scorpio has this thing of like they truly think that like Venus and Scorpio, I think more than can get into the like one person is right for everybody kind of thought process. And like somebody telling that to you, and as much as you can, because you can be like, I can get that. Yeah. One person for me, Venus in the 7th house. I get it. But it's not that same possessiveness. So just because he told you this is what love is, that doesn't mean that that's what it is. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily did something wrong. It just means that he's not right for you. And I think a lot of Venus and Sagittarius can get into a lot of stifling relationships, and they'll be like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And it's just like, maybe you're just picking the wrong person. Maybe you two just aren't right for each other.
Yeah, I think that,
and I'm not saying you need you probably still want a monogamous relationship, but I think you're somebody who you need to go through some experiences first before you stick with just one person.
Libras have the tendency of whatever someone says being like, oh, you must be right.
They talk
They
with
must
such,
know. Yeah.
Because I don't talk. I only talk with such like assertion when I know I'm right, and that's
Yeah.
rare. So they must know.
They must know. And if someone is making you feel bad, if someone is being possessive, if someone is not willing to forgive or let go, you need to remember too, and I think it's probably difficult because you've mentioned also issues with your friendships.
Yeah.
But you don't need to accept what one specific person is presenting love for you to be. I had an ex who was also a Scorpio who would tell me that I was, who was also very possessive, lots of similar things, I'm sure. And one specific thing, just classic Scorpio, one specific thing is that he would always tell me that I would look so much better if I got my nose done, that I needed to basically change myself. in a lot of ways. And once I broke up with him and I realized the community of friendships that I had of people who didn't tell me, who said that they liked my nose, who said that they liked my body, who said that they liked certain things about me, I was just choosing to accept that
Right.
person was presenting me with love.
Yeah,
When
Venus in the
truly-
7th house, this is the person who's in
Yeah.
love. I should listen to them. They must be right. Yeah.
When truly unconditional love is loving someone without conditions. It's loving someone even though they cheated on you. It's loving someone and being able to listen and get past that because you love that person. And if someone isn't loving you unconditionally, there's really no reason to
And a Scorpio's gonna
Entertaining.
say that like they love you unconditionally, even if they don't.
even if they don't.
Yeah. Because they're like, no, it's all I feel. It's all-consuming possessiveness. It must be love.
Yeah, so I think getting a different perspective on the situation than just this person who is very involved,
Never just get a
in it.
Scorpio sun's perspective on
Yeah.
something.
especially about you cheating on them, you know? If you can, like, I could never have gone through the healing that I had to go through with that relationship without having other people's perspectives around me, because I'm also a very Libra influenced person. So I was looking at this person like, oh my God, well, you whatever you're saying must be right because you're saying it with such authority. And then Shayna would be like, no, that's totally fucking wrong. And I'd be like, well, Shayna's saying it with so much authority. And you know what? I kind of fuck with what she's saying, you know?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, Libra needs to get multiple insights, and
Yes.
they're like, whose emphasis am I most emphasizing?
Yeah.
Who sparks me the most?
Or I'm trying to like find a scale analogy, like who am I tipping my scale towards a little more?
Yeah, true. That's true.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But I feel like Venus and Cancer in the 2nd house. Letting go. Never
Moon
heard
and
of her.
Cancer.
What did I say?
You said Venus.
I meant Venus. I was thinking. I meant Moon the whole time. Moon in Cancer 2nd house does not want to let go, so it makes sense as to why you were having trouble with that. And also, like maybe your Moon trines the Sun or something, and you're like, he is the one. I just want to be taken care of. He holds me, and he gives me security. Because like a Scorpio will give you great security in the sense of like they're very possessive and
Yeah.
they always remind you of it.
But a pure Scorpio
But-
is not going to check off all your boxes.
No.
Like I said, you need a healthy dose of distance, a healthy dose of independence.
You
and
need some fire and
individuality.
air.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't need to.
And
There's somebody who needs to get some spark in your life.
just because your Venus is in the 7th house, don't feel like this is all that's out there for me because I've made up my mind and I have to stick to it.
Yeah.
You know? And I think there's a few stages of grief. I think you need to be mad at this person.
He has a
for
Scorpio
long
Venus
time.
and Scorpio Moon, as well as a Scorpio Sun. And he's in your 6th house, so you just want to do everything for him.
Uh-huh.
Shaking my head. Run! Run!
No.
Yeah, it falls into your 6th
Oh
house.
yeah. I'm stupid. And then okay, back to your Venus, not this asshole's.
Fuck him. Boo.
We can be the other influences
No.
on you.
No, but I seriously think that Venus in Scorpio and Venus in Sagittarius is such a terrible combination.
I think you're just young. There's something better out there for you.
He's
especially
hot, whatever.
especially if this person is making you feel so bad.
Yeah, and guilty.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think
You're
you would
young.
feel
You're such
as
a life ahead.
I don't know if you would feel as guilty if this person, because I cheated on my Scorpio boyfriend too, but I never told him. We were on a break. Actually, though.
No, she had tried to break up with him, and he said no.
Yes, we had broken up about 4 times before I slept with someone else, and then I had to and it was a really hard process of cutting him off because they're like a fucking leech. They want to
they're
hang
not
on.
gonna go
And
anytime soon.
and the more you're like no, the more they're like now I'm gonna do
Hang on
everything
to
that
each other.
I'm gonna tell you that I love you even though I hadn't told you that in months when we were actually together, all this stuff. And I don't think that I would have gotten over it if I had told him, because I would have absorbed. That's why I didn't tell him, because I was like, I'm just gonna absorb all this guilt and feel so bad for hurting him, so I'm just not gonna tell him. And that was my biggest motivation, to just cut it off, because I was like, I can't lie to him, I can't tell him the truth, I'm gonna cut it off. Right? So I think you wouldn't be in this position of feeling so guilty if you weren't so influenced by how he felt about the situation.
Yeah.
And I think if you did that, it was something that you needed to do on some level.
Yeah, and also, I don't know. Yeah, on some level, it's something you needed to do. And I think you should forgive yourself, seeing as you're around our age, and it's like we're all gonna kind of fuck up and make some mistakes and tumbles along the way in relationships. And for somebody to not kind of almost not expect that, but at least at some point forgive it
Yeah.
is cruel.
Except
almost,
in the sense
know?
of like it happened, and move forward from it.
So just you need to forgive yourself though, and you don't Libras can do this thing of like, if this person didn't forgive me, then I can't forgive myself. Like I
Yeah.
can only forgive myself if the other person forgives me, because then that doesn't make sense. But I think in this situation, you need to separate yourself and forgive yourself and go, he's never going to forgive me, and that's okay. But I need to forgive myself so I can move on.
Yeah, with Venus in 7th house, it's also hard to reconcile someone being upset with you, and you'll just kind of push down like anything negative
Mhm.
that you're feeling in order to kind of keep peace. And that's
Yeah.
also
but
difficult
also
to
you have
reconcile.
Mars in there, so
Yeah.
it can get you into some really turbulent fights with him.
You probably want to grab your charger because your laptop's at 10%.
Thank you.
Yeah, and honestly, the Jupiter influence on your 7th house, it